She's a lot bit woo-woo, and she's doing the do. Welcome to the W&D Podcast, where Irina and Christine Michelle teach you how to combine the spiritual and the physical. Because you get to use all of you and the universe to manifest a life you enjoy. Come join us. Let's have some fun. Hi, welcome to the W&D Podcast. I'm Christine Michelle.
And this is Irina Pichura.
And don't worry, I know those of you who are watching on YouTube, you cannot see Irina's beautiful face. It's because she had Thanksgiving fun and her webcam is sitting in the car.
It's en route to New York, and I mistakenly forgot it because I actually flew back to New York, and this actually segues right into our topic, hanging out with family on holidays and just kind of navigating what we talk about during, Thanksgiving, Christmas, any kind of holidays where you're spending time with loved ones and they kind of just don't get where you're at.
Yeah, that's so perfect. So this is all about like navigating. You're sitting in this aligned place. You have these super, beliefs. Maybe you're a lot woo-woo. Maybe you're a little bit woo-woo. Maybe you're just feeling good and you're in a great place and you have this business and people are like, why are you working for yourself? You can make a lot more money working for somebody else. If you just have a situation where you have to put yourself with a group of people where it's not really law of attraction, it's really like you having to place yourself into the environment where you're with family, friends, or certain people that really you necessarily wouldn't engage with normally. How do you deal with that? So Irina, tell us the story. Like, tell us what's going on and what brought all this question up.
So kind of like on a day-to-day, my boyfriend knows that I'm spiritual. He knows a little bit about the mindset, but he's obviously not like actively doing it like I am, not doing the meditation work and, listening to your YouTube channel or reading, Spiritual Junkie and like taking all these courses and doing all of this, internal work. He knows about it. Just from being around me, he's like conscious of it, but still, he falls into like that negative rut and I still have conversations with him. But, extended family is very far removed. They don't think about this stuff. They don't know about this stuff. They were raised in a time where, you have to hustle, you have to work for your money, and money is hard to come by. And this is very expensive. And so I just came back, as I mentioned, from Thanksgiving dinner. And, his parents and his family is very old school. And they, think that money is very difficult and this is very expensive and we can never afford this. And living in New York is very expensive and we all have to move, to a place that's much more affordable. And all of that is just kind of like, I can't like, yeah. So you want to tune it out, but at the same time, you want to be respectful of, them, and you don't want to tell them, this is how it is, and try to, start a whole like debate over Thanksgiving dinner, especially after cocktails. So it's kind of like, how do you kind of balance it without like letting their energy and their belief system rub off on you and you lowering your vibration? Like, how do you kind of navigate that situation? So I guess that's kind of like what I ran into during my Thanksgiving, and something that I noticed that like even when I go home with my parents, a lot of the time I have to stop them and tell them, no, this is not expensive, this is just your mindset. And they're like, what the heck is mindset?
So what did you end up doing in that situation before we dive in? Like what are other ways that you can navigate it? So what did you do?
I mean, I just kind of like internally tell myself like that isn't ultimately the truth and that I have my own belief system and I don't necessarily have to explain it to them. That's their belief system and that's how it has to be. But I do, find myself that like my vibration does kind of like drip down a little bit just by being around that energy.
Yeah. And so the big thing is that you you remember that your beliefs are your beliefs, right? Your vibration is your vibration. And the only way your vibration can go down, or the only way it can adjust is if you allow it to.
Right.
And so the first thing to remember is that when we take accountability for what shows up or reflects in our life, then we can change it or we can move it. And I know this is very controversial because a lot of people are like, well, what are you trying to say, that I brought on this abusive boyfriend or I brought on this kind of thing? And it's not that you brought it on, you know, there's soul contracts and all kinds of things that we don't have time to get into. But when you say, okay, whatever reflects back to me, there's a little bit in me that either is aligning with it or pushing against it and not allowing it to be, then you can say, okay, I'm going to choose to allow it to be. So I feel like the first thing that I wrote down when we were talking about this is that we have to let people be them, which you did.
Yeah.
You were like, I'm going to allow you to have your beliefs. In your head, you're like, you know what? It's their beliefs. It's their beliefs.
It's always at the tip of my tongue to like start like teaching and like, you know, putting that on them. But I'm like, you know, they have their belief system, which they were raised with so many much more years on top of me. So who am I to kind of start, you know, teaching this? I'm teaching so many other things to them. Yeah.
You're the example of it.
Yeah.
Then you can say, you know, then they'll be like, whoa, wow, like that actually isn't true for her. Like, how can that be true for me? And sometimes that'll help people shift. But if it's not in their vibration, in their openness to shift and see something different, because you always see what you believe, right? Yeah. So I think the first thing is what you did. You allowed them to be. So if you're going to, like, let's say Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter or whatever holiday, when you're watching this video and you're trying to figure out what's the first thing you can do to have peace, is to let them be. Let everyone have their own opinion. And it doesn't mean that you have to agree with it. Like, for example, there's people that I do not agree with them in the least, but I'm like, you know what? That's their path. And that's what they have to believe. And it might have a lot of things to do with that are anti-me or anti, you know, things that I believe or whatever, but that's not going to hurt me and it's not going to change what I believe. So why can't I just allow them to be?
Right.
And so that's going to be one thing. And then the other thing is to realize that everyone usually speaks from the lens of their own experience.
Right.
So in addition to letting them be, this feeds on the other one, which means just see the positive in what they're saying, because what they're saying is what worked for them. And so they don't want you, most people, parents, friends, everybody's like, I don't want them to make the same mistakes I did. So I'm telling them this so that they don't make the same mistakes. And so even if their money vibe is like low and they're like, you got to work hard and da-da-da-da, they're saying that because working hard worked for them. And they're just saying that because they're like, this is going to help because I learned this, I've seen this. And it's like parents, I know more than you, when actually children know a lot more than their parents.
Isn't that the truth?
You know, the kids, they know way more than us. So, because they're still tapped in, they're still knowing, they're still tuned into their own intuition. That's why they say what's on their mind without filter, which, you know, and we grew up and learned how to have, you know, filters and not say what's on our mind. Children know a lot more. So it really is to see the positive in what they're doing. So for example, my parents, I love my parents and they're some of the most positive people ever, but my parents, my dad specifically watches the news all day, right?
Oh, I know.
You know, and I was always pushing against it, always pushing, Dad, the news is blah, blah, blah. You don't have to, you know, big, you know, woo-woo Christine, the news, blah, blah. And then my dad would always warn us to, you know, this is going to help you be safe. This is what you do. I mean, he's so sweet. He bought us all toolboxes when we moved out to make sure my sister and I were safe and knew how to fix things and all that stuff. And so my sister and I always used to push against it. They'd come visit us for 4 weeks and my dad would watch the news a lot and we were kind of like pushing against it. And why does Dad watch news? And this would be so much better for his health, all of this stuff. So then we stopped and we realized, you know what, when he tells us some of those things about the raper man that's around the corner or someone else, he's telling us that because he loves us and he wants to protect us. So then when we started looking at it at the lens of, okay, Dad watches the news because he wants to tell us all the things he wants to protect us from. We started to just be positive about, okay, that's cool. This is what helps him feel like he's making a difference.
Right.
So when we started that, when he was in our presence, he watched the news a lot less. Because he started to reflect back to us like the more positivity, and instead of us pushing against it so much. So when we saw what the love and where the love and appreciate him for whatever he was saying, that allowed it to dissipate. And does my dad watch the news all the time? Heck yeah. He just called me the other day about the salmonella that's in the lettuce. But it wasn't like, oh, you need to watch the news now. He's like, I know you guys don't watch the news, and that's okay. I just want to tell you about the salmonella in the lettuce, and don't buy any romaine. And I was like, okay, thanks, Dad, But it all shifted once we shifted our perspective on it being more love.
Yeah, like how you receive it. So that makes a lot of sense, because it's kind of like I didn't know what to do with the information. I received the romaine information too in passing, now that I think about it. And all the topics that come up on the news that we watch, and we kind of like, when we congregate, we talk about these topics, and it's like, oh, you have to watch out for this and this and this. And I'm just sitting there like, well, the more you're going to talk about it, the more you're afraid of it, the more you're going to, attract it into your life. So I guess like what you're saying is not to think of it that way, but just to receive it as them, warning you, and it coming from a loving place.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the way they express their love.
Right.
And we don't have to agree, because we're like, what? But the more I was like, why is he telling me this? I'm safe.
Yeah.
The more he told me,
don't put this in my vortex. Don't do it.
Right. And the more you realize that no one can place anything into your vortex or your vibration unless you allow it. And by you pushing against it, you're allowing it.
You're allowing it.
Love them and like know it's coming from their heart, and know that they're doing it out of a space of love. Then you allow it to be.
Just to be. I love that.
Okay. So then from there, continue to do what's best for you, right? So let's say you're visiting your family. You're like, I don't see the love in any of this. There's some families where you're not going to see that. What you can do is take some time away, right? You said you do your meditations. You have your alignment practice. Instead of jumping up and letting everyone know you're awake in the morning, in the beginning, take 5, 10, 20 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes or an hour, and just close the door, keep the lights off, and take some time for you. And start it in the more positive way. Making a list of all the things you're so grateful for those particular family members. And if you can't find one thing that you care about, just say, I care that they gave life to me, or that they're in my life and I know that they're giving me contrast so that I can know what I would rather. Think of one thing and just think about all the things that you're grateful for, so that when you walk out of that room in the morning in the family place, that you can walk there with your heart open and with so much gratitude for them being in your life. And you can look at it from a place of compassion. Let's say you have a crazy, crazy sister and she does crazy things and you're like, oh my God, she's ridiculous. Maybe you can just look at her from a space of compassion and say, I'm going to love her regardless. I'm going to love her for who she is. And I know that I chose to come into this world in this family. So I'm going to love each and every one of these wackadoo people as much as I can, and be grateful for when I get in the car and I drive home that, I come out unscathed, so it's continue to do what's best for you. Maybe put that time in the beginning of the day and the end of the day, so that you have some quiet time outside of that energy, so that you can maybe, like I like to say, put your armor on, even though you're not barricading yourself, you're just filling yourself up with love, so that you have more love to give when you're in the environment that's a little sketchy.
And it's so sketchy. I actually brought crystals with me to Thanksgiving.
That's a great idea. Yeah. So did you just hold them and you just really place them in certain places, so you'd be like, whoo?
to bring me back to my woo.
Yes. And ward off the energy.
Yeah. And I think the PS also is, you don't have to like push this on them, but it's always nice to give maybe a nice like spiritual gift, so they can learn more about it. Like maybe The Secret or The Universe Has Your Back, something like very light and breezy as a gift if you want them to be a part of it and maybe get into your world a little bit. So
yes, so that's a good idea. So one more thing I wanted to bring up, and this was the first thing I said, and then we can talk about some awesome things that you can give to people.
Yeah.
But remember that this is a mirror. The entire life, your life is a mirror. And when you remember that whatever's reflecting back to you is something that's inside of you, whether it's something that you will wholeheartedly believe and you're unconscious of, or you're pushing against and you're not allowing to be, just remember that. And I think when you are aware of that, that gives you the ability to choose. Like, what do I choose now? How do I choose this to be? And it gets you away from victim mentality or feeling like everything's happening to you instead of for you.
Yeah.
So when you're with family and let's say you are a super woo and you are into crystals and you're into like maybe even tarot and like all the things, and you have a family that is totally not into that, and they're like, you talking about this energy stuff, what are you, what? There's a way that you can navigate a lot of these conversations, right? You can navigate a lot of these conversations, and the world has opened up its mind in so long, in different places. I mean, in different ways, right? There's no one that's more woo-woo than Oprah, right? And I can guarantee their parents are probably super into Oprah. They're like, she's amazing, she's this. But they don't realize that that's how Oprah got where she is because she was open to the entire like world of woo and knowing that she co-creates her reality and understanding the universe and God and source and all of that stuff. And there's ways that you can navigate your beliefs and talk about what's true to your heart. And if you're super okay with the fact that you could get shut down, and super okay with the fact that this is just me, so I'm just going to be me, then you'll find that there's little cracks and people are listening more and not ignoring you. But when you're not okay with it, when you want to force it down, or like you said, preach it to someone versus allowing it to just be the way you speak, then that's when you'll get a little bit of adversity because it's something that you won't allow people to just be them and maybe not be into what you're into.
Yeah. So what you're saying is just have a natural conversation the way that you and I are speaking right now, and they'll just get curious and inquisitive. And yeah, so I love that. Yeah.
And when it's more you, that's just the way you speak. When every time you talk to her, my dad laughs because before he was like, what is this energy thing? And when I related it to what they believed and related it to Christianity and the way that was he was like, oh, yeah, I get that, right? Because I spoke his language.
Yeah.
But now, like, I speak about energy all the time, and my dad says stuff about vibes and all of that stuff because it's just me, right? It's not me trying to force it on him and him to believe exactly the way I believe, right? They still have their beliefs that we grew up with as children, but when I related it to them and when I speak to them, I use God because that is the way they speak, right? So I would speak about God, I'll speak about, I'll say source and the universe and all of that, but then I'll use the word God a lot more because then they'll be like, yeah, and they'll
understand.
And they'll understand it instead of me trying to be all esoteric and completely woo-woo, because and a lot of times you'll know that when people are doing that to be them, they're doing that to one up people or to just be like, this is what I believe, it's different from you, when all of these things and all of these religions and all of these things, when you look at it, they're all the same. Yeah. All of almost the exact same principles. So it's like, we aren't better than each other, we're all one.
Correct.
So to really just look at everyone like one. And I love the ideas, like you said, giving them the book of, Universe Has Your Back, or like giving them beautiful crystals, because crystals are of the earth, and there's nothing woo-woo really about crystals.
Yeah, I think everyone that sees my crystals, they're like, these are so beautiful. Like, what do they mean? And that gives you an opportunity to explain the energy of it and what each one means, and what saging can do and cleansing the air and all that stuff. I think it's very exciting. I think like those are awesome gifts for the holidays.
So totally. And it's so beautiful for you to be able to be you, right? And navigate your beliefs, whether they're woo woo or not, and still show up with love, because I think that's all that matters, is being open and being loving and willing to allow everyone to just be themselves.
And this is something you'll love. I gave my future nieces journals.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So, and they have little box.
Is she pregnant?
No. There's two nieces. One is
on your boyfriend's side.
Yeah, on the boyfriend side.
Okay.
And like for last Christmas, like I thought about like what kinds of gifts would I give them, and I'm like, I can't start them like with crystals and saging because they're very young, but letting them just like write down whatever happened in school and stuff like that. That's like the beginning of journal work, and letting them kind of like write down their thoughts, and
Yes.
they love that. So I think just like giving them even things like that they don't even know are like the spiritual things that we do is such a fun idea.
That's a beautiful gift. And everyone I know, at least everyone I know, I love journals. If you can see, you can't see behind me, but I have like millions of journals. But that all started when I was like 6 years old, when I could write. And it's just writing what is in your mind and your heart and your soul. I mean, had started since the beginning of time, right? We used to write on rocks in caveman days, and used to take the ink and like write with the feather, and everyone wants to write because you can express what's in your head, get it out of your head and get it on paper. That is such a beautiful gift, and it does have a lot of significance if you really tap into what writing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling can truly do for you. So that's a beautiful gift. And it's not off-putting. It's not like giving someone a crystal ball or like a tarot card set or something like that.
Baby steps,
ready for.
Baby steps. First they get like a journal, then maybe a crystal, and then maybe a tarot card.
Right, exactly. And then the good thing is, like you said, I think the big thing is when you're being you, when you're walking into the home, you're being completely you. And like you said, you're spiritual. So your first step is, or your first intention is to be love and to, allow others to be themselves and to love them. Then people can feel that because they can feel your intention. And it's not to say that your next family dinner or family event is going to go off without a hitch, but remember that you have the choice. And when you flip on awareness and say, okay, what is this mirror reflecting back to me? And now I can choose how I react to it. Then you'll start to see that your family dinners, as you continue them, will start to change and shift as you grow and shift.
Yeah, I love that. I love all of this advice.
Yay. So did that help at all for the next family visit?
Yeah, we have visitors coming for Christmas, some negative, some positive, but yeah, definitely. I love it.
Yeah. And the awesome thing is, like we said, that when you see contrast, it's a gift because it's just reflecting back to you something that you get to shift, and you get to shift it quickly.
Yeah. And I love the idea of contrast. Whenever I hear Abraham Hicks, speak about it, whenever something negative is happening or something different than what I believe or want to see, just remembering that contrast, exists for a reason, and it gives you something to, see the difference in and appreciate the other, the positive.
Right. The other side.
The other side. So I think it's really great. And now I have some ideas for Christmas holiday gifts.
Hey, I love your ideas. I love those gifts. And guys, those gifts, if it's for holiday, birthdays, whatever, graduations, all that stuff, it's not expensive gifts, but it's something that they'll have for months on end. If they're writing in that journal every day, something for them to remember you by and appreciate you for helping them to like write what's on their heart and their soul. So I love these gift ideas.
Yeah.
And you can always go to, what is it, Sunday Forever.
.com. Yeah.
Yes. And they have beautiful crystals, beautiful sage, like everything is just designed to a T. Ashley is the owner and she is the founder, and it's gorgeous. So definitely go there if you're looking for some great woo-woo gifts, because I mean, it's fabulous.
Quality stuff. Yeah.
Quality. So this is it for us. We will be back soon. We'll probably see you in the springtime. This is our first season, and I think it went off very well.
Yeah, I had so much fun and I learned so much, and had so much fun hanging out with you.
Yay, I had so much fun as well. So please, tell us in the comments, like, have you had any family events that you've gone to that you would rather go a different way? And just for advice, we'll be in the comments. We'll give you some advice about that. And then remember to subscribe. Like we said, this is the end of the first season, but we will be back with season 2, most likely in the spring. So we're looking forward to recording those episodes for you. And you can also follow us on Instagram. We'll get quotes and posts and all that stuff out in the spring. So definitely follow us. And we look forward to doing this with you.
Yeah, you guys are going to get the Woo and the Do part 2.
Yes.
In the spring.
We'll do part 2. That is it for today. Hugs, kisses, all the feels. And remember to let your woo-woo freak flag fly.
Yes.
And take action and do the do. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to the Woo and the Do podcast. If you loved it as much as we loved recording it for you, please leave a review and join me and Irina on Facebook and Instagram at The Woo and the Do. Also, please come hang out with us in the lounge on Facebook. It is our insiders group. You'll have access to me and you'll have access to Irina, and we will give you show notes and freebies and all kinds of amazingness, and you can connect with more listeners of this podcast and have a listening party. In the meantime, remember to embrace all of your woo-woo goodness and continue to take that divine inspired action and do the do. Bye.